Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this committee in relation to assisted dying. In 2022, there was a consensus done in Ireland, and I'll just read out the breakdown of those that were identified in relation to their religion. So 68% identified as Roman Catholic, 1.8% identified as Muslim, and 14% identified as non-religious. So altogether, there was 73% that identified themselves as Christian, of the Christian faith. Now, obviously, that's changed over a number of decades. So, given that, and there's been numerous opinion polls being done in the last number of years, that consistently shows 75% of people support legislative change. And if that's a cross-section of society, that would include people of the Christian faith. And I'm sure that people of the Christian faith would support legislative change around assisted dying, and I think that's, if 75% of public opinion says that we would support assisted dying and legislative change. Now, Ireland has made huge social strides in the last 25 years. Huge social strides. And each of them strides, the Catholic Church have been against them. Contraception, Catholic Church are against contraception, which is incredible, really. Divorce, marriage equality, and a woman's right to choose. Each of them strides, where there's been legislative change, whether it's a referendum, they've been on the wrong side of that history and that evolution. And I believe assisted dying is one of them issues where people of, a religious kind of hierarchy are, oppose this. And I understand and I do respect your views, but I believe them views should be separate from an issue such as assisted dying, because it's a very personal thing. But obviously, if it's a personal thing, it needs to be kind of trashed out in relation to legislative change. So, given that a public opinion clearly states that they would support legislative change around assisted dying, how come you're out of step in relation to all the religious organisations with public opinion?
So again, as I was saying earlier, the main case we would put forward here when we're trying to talk about the common good of all of society, and that point I was making earlier, is not based on a religious faith. So the idea that you have, say suicide prevention or helping people not to decide to take their own life should be applied to everybody equally. And so that's not a religious point of view. I mean, it's compatible with the religious point of view, but I'm not here asking you to, go to mass every Sunday or anything, which is, specific. So that's a principle that I would hope anybody could see. So what I'm talking into here on, representing a Catholic position is something that is aimed at trying to support the common good of all of society. And it's not about imposing a Catholic view on. So that idea that if you want to prevent people who are presenting for whatever reason with desire to end their own life, that you offer that raft of support, that should be offered equally to everybody, is not a religious point of view. The idea
that's not contentious. That's not contentious here.
Yes, but
conflating the issue of suicide and assisted dying is very regrettable, I have to say. Very regrettable. And, people keep doing it. They keep doing it. And it's just not helpful at all.
I understand that is one of the issues that's under debate. That whether you can really distinguish. So I've been trying to say somebody who wants to take their own life. So my attitude is people, there's an idea that under the current, say, suicide prevention, supports, that there's a certain set of supports. But if I'm able to present rationally and present my case very well in a calm way, is there an idea that then I'm not suicide? I think that's very hard to distinguish. If somebody wants to take their own life, there's a raft of reasons why they might want. And my point is they should be equally supported in that. That's not a religious point of view. The idea that if I decide that, say, for instance, somebody who's got 6 months to live from cancer, right? If the state says yes, that person, if they present wanting to end their own life, that means everybody who's 6 months away from cancer knows that they're in a situation that if they ask their doctor...
But not everybody's going to ever choose assisted
No, but that's
dying.
what I mean, that you already know you're in that category.
And you don't think people should have that, at least that choice?
I think we should treat people...
They should have a say in how
equally.
Do you think people should have a say in how they die?
I think, like, for instance, if I go into my doctor and ask for something much less contentious, if I go in and ask for antibiotics, the doctor... And that's my wish, I want antibiotics for myself, right? The doctor will take into account whether that's good for me or whether what I have is a virus and it won't help me, but he'll also take into account the whole of society and that giving me the antibiotic will affect. So likewise, the decision to, say, decide that a certain category of people can be supported at the end of their life, that does affect other people who might never decide that, but they know that they're in a different category. They're in a second-class category. But my point is that those arguments are not based on religion. I'm not presenting a religious case. I'm presenting a case that I think a person from any background could either agree with or disagree with, but it's not presenting a Catholic view.
I presume you're morally against assisted dying because it's against God's teaching.
I'm against it for the reasons that I'm saying.
I respect that.
But I'm against it for the reasons that I'm saying, that I think people should be treated equally.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody has an equal value. So their arguments, I would think, not specifically religious.
Could I come in there? I suppose just something I think we forget about when it comes to dying, to illness, to all of that people are very vulnerable. I think sometimes we underestimate how vulnerable people are when they're sick, or when they're faced with maybe a terminal diagnosis, that sometimes is the option maybe to end their own life seen as maybe an easy way out or a solution to the problem. Whereas what we are offering on the ground at the moment is compassionate care. We're seeing the vulnerability. We're addressing the vulnerability. I suppose I go back to maybe, you can go into all sorts of theological and philosophical debates here, but I guess for me it's how do we understand human suffering? And how do we help people when they are suffering to address their pain of all descriptions, their physical, their emotional, their spiritual? So this is part of, we're not here pushing any particular agenda. Yes, we are representing a particular viewpoint. We're open to conversation around this, but I would really suggest that we go back to the vulnerability of the human condition when we are faced with illness, when we are faced with it. I will just share one, if I may, one very short insight into my own experience. When I was a very young woman, I faced my own mortality very seriously, and I found myself in a position where I actually probably wanted to die. Am I glad that the option of assisted dying was not available to me? Absolutely. Because if I look at my life in the last 20 years, all the things I've achieved, all the experiences I've had...
How would you have having that choice in your life? Because assisted dying obviously wasn't legislated for. But obviously what we're talking about is if, hopefully it is, assisted dying is legislated in Ireland, we're talking about a small cohort of people, that have a terminal diagnosis and have a kind of a time-limiting condition. We're not talking about, if somebody has, somebody has maybe possibly kind of mental health difficulties. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a quite strict, criteria. What? I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is back to our, maybe some of what was said earlier, the slippery slope. But you see, this is the reality, that once you open the door to this type of...
Can you show me the evidence of that?
Well, there have been speakers that have have already addressed issues of slippery slopes.
No. If you can present the evidence...
We're going to go on now to Senator Ronan Mullen.